Welcome to Empowerment Radio. My name is Dr. Friedemann, and I'm so glad that you decided to join me. Empowerment Radio is about giving you the insights, tools, and solutions to address some of the most challenging aspects of our daily lives. So sit back, relax, and empower yourself.
How to be more resilient during this really turbulent and challenging time is the topic of the show. Now, before you think, well, you know what, politics, not for me, not interested at all. Think about that politics is pretty much doing so much of your life. So if you say you're done with politics, you're ignoring that politics is not done with you. It will always affect you. The way your environment is, the way the infrastructure is, the way the laws are, the way the judges are, things that we just cannot overlook. In the end, politics is a business, not of the politicians. It's the business of the people. We are supposed to be directly the checks and balances for the politicians and their politics. And that is exactly our chance now in 40 days to take a little bit of our power back and vote. It's really an important time right now. Having said that, let's focus on the mind and the anxiety and have the first step of calming your mind already in the forefront of your mind, which is accept. Accept simply that this is the best you could do so far because you haven't listened to the show and maybe you didn't really know the resources that you have inside of you to calm your mind. So have a little bit of compassion. So many people that feel anxious and worried beat themselves up because they are feeling those feelings. They don't see themselves as strong. They feel like, well, everyone else has it together. What's wrong with me? And that self-judgment is a huge drain of your energy. And it's almost like you're scaring your mind even more by being so critical with it. So having a little self-compassion and just knowing that this is something that really is ultimately a sign of your mind, this anxiety, that it needs a little attention, that it needs a little bit of TLC, and that you want to really be more for your mind, be more attentive and really address more how to make this anxiety less the predominant emotion in your life. And for that, you want to look at what you're feeding your mind with. There is this notion that, basically we have to watch out. Well, it's not a notion, it's a truth. We have to watch out what we are feeding our body, but so little is paid attention to what we are feeding our minds with. And when we are watching, constantly our favorite news outlets, or we are going to social media outlets and we are looking at all those conspiracy theories or all the ranting and all that, what's, offered there to somehow get you emotionally involved. Well, you're obviously feeding your mind with a lot of information, and a lot of the information is negative. And a lot of the information is charging your mind with anxiety. So get off the media or news or social media binge, because it's not true that you're going to feel better when you have more information. In fact, the more information you have, the more also emotional charge you have, because it is just overwhelming. You probably know already all you need to know for you to vote. So you could just step back and say, I'm going to give myself a 2-3 day rest, or I'm going to limit my my exposure to the news to only 30 minutes a day. A client of mine took 2-day fast of media. She said it was completely different. She felt all of a sudden calmer. She could sleep better, and she was certainly happier. So watch out for what you put into your mind, and also shield yourself from the negativity of others. It's very tempting to call up your best friend or your your brother and, start ranting and venting and just riling each other up, or you listen to, your father-in-law who is just of the opposite opinion, and you get really internally almost exploding because you just feel like everything he is saying is completely wrong. And that's all negativity. That all creates more anxiety inside of us. So disconnect. Don't just go into the temptation of the comfort of having someone that's on your side and thinks the same, but in the end, you only feel more stressed and more attached and more involved in a way that ultimately makes you only feel powerless, makes you only feel anxious, because what you feel is probably more frustration and anger than anything else. So allow yourself also to step away from that and instead attend to your inner world. So many times we feel powerless, that the outer world is just too overwhelming, out of control. We don't know if we can really make a difference. The people, the circumstances we're in, everything seems somehow out of our reach. But we always have control over our inner world. And that also means how we see a situation or a person, how we think, feel, how we believe about them, and what actions we take. The inner world is really a sanctuary that we unfortunately often ignore. I read the story about this this prisoner in a Vietnam prison camp, who was, I think, more than a decade under horrendous situations, held captive. And he said that the way for him to survive this time was to go into this inner world and go back to his childhood, where he helped his father to plant seeds on a field. He went every day through the process of plowing and then, raking and then planting the seeds, and he watched the seeds grow, and he envisioned taking care of the young plants, and he imagined how then eventually he was harvesting, and all of this was keeping him engaged. His inner world was predictable, was familiar, was harmonious, and even while he was beaten and tortured, he didn't really succumb to the pain. He didn't break, because he could always find that strength, that predictability, that connection to the inner world that really kept him sane throughout this entire time. And, we heard stories like this before, but I find it so fascinating how the inner world is such a safe place if we choose to make it this way. So that can be that you meditate. That can be that you are really visualize and just go into daydreaming. Daydreaming can also mean just that you are going into a place that either you want to be, go on a little vacation to, I don't know, to Hawaii, and even though you may have never been there, just enjoy walking on the beach. It can be also that you're dreaming the outcome that you want, the world that you want to see, the changes in the country that you want to see. Dare to dream. For the subconscious, it does not make at all any different whether you are dreaming, imagining, or whether this is really happening, which is, as you know, the reason why we can read books or watch movies and be totally enthralled in it. So it doesn't have to be just sitting still and watching your breath, or just taking, paying attention to your body or letting your thoughts go, which are all wonderful things to calm down your mind. But for some, it's hard. For some, it feels like, I don't know, I'm wrestling all the time with a hyperactive mind. Another way to calm your mind down is simply to take it by its hand and bring it on a trip, on something very pleasant, on, laying in the grass, just walking up a mountain, swimming in the ocean, whatever it is that makes your mind feel, oh, and that's the reality. This inner world is paradise. This inner world feels that I can actually relax, nourish myself, and find more clarity this way. So that's another wonderful way for you to get into this place of calmness. And calmness brings you new perspective. Now, when you do feel that, okay, now I have again that sense of I'm in control of my thoughts, I don't go into negativity, I don't feed myself with anything that doesn't serve me, and I'm more in charge of my inner world, I have been actually attending to that sanctuary within, then you're going to feel more clear and empowered on what actions you can take next, what you can do to make this period of time not just something where you feel like you're a bystander, completely passive, unable to make a difference, but instead realize I can actually do something. I can actually do something that makes me feel better and more empowered, like a client of mine who will become a voting observer in another state. And there are official positions you can apply for. And if this is something that you feel inclined to do, or if you want to support an organization that you believe in, or just go to the people that you feel like they are undecided, and you want to talk with them and hear them out, all of those things are possibilities for you to feel more engaged and more empowered. So take care of your mind. And once your mind is calmer, then you can also go into those inner resources of resilience. Now, what is resilience? I think resilience is something we are hearing a lot in the last, few years, but what is actually resilience? Now, the definition of resilience is the ability to mentally and emotionally cope with a crisis. And that sounds, pretty good, right? It is when we are able to deal with something we actually don't really find ideal. That's not really what we want to have in our lives. When we're able to deal with it in a way that we are not losing ourselves in the midst of it all. Resilience is not that there are never any problems. Resilience is not that, when you are facing an obstacle, you're just not seeing it as an obstacle, but you're just, hopping over it and moving on. And no, resilience is when you get beaten down, when you feel that, you have lost your footing, when you do feel, that is a defeat. Something really happened to you that knocks you off your feet. And then being able to somehow find that strength to get up and say, okay, now what? What can I do now with the situation I'm in? And there are very specific factors. There are specific pillars, resources inside of us. We all have to be able to go through life with greater resilience. And those factors we're going to talk about after the break. Hi, Dr. Friedemann here. Thank you for tuning into my YouTube channel. If you're interested in learning more about fear and anxiety, here you'll find guided meditations, webinars, and interviews with some of the most renowned experts in the field of empowerment. Delve into the over 230 videos and more to come every week.